Bye, Amsterdam.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Actually, they say Profst here or something like that.
Then like 2 years before they actually started building it, the guy figured out how to make the nice curved part. So they did that instead. So this is one of the first projects he did. And then after that, I think he went to Dublin and did one. I need a phone. Today is September 7th and we've been in Belfast for 3 days now. It's been really lovely being here. It kind of ended up being the perfect way to cap off our trip because by the time we'd spent a full week in Amsterdam, a place where the native language is different from ours, and like I personally felt a little bit uncomfortable in our Airbnb and just all the other, it was just pretty draining by the end of the week and I was feeling very homesick. And then when we got here, seeing them and coming to stay in their cozy flat just was like the perfect reset that I needed to kind of emotionally get through the last couple of days of being homesick and missing our dogs. I really underestimated how long 3 weeks was gonna feel. I really wanted to, while I'm still here on the trip, in like traveling mindset rather than getting back home and resetting, getting back to usual life mindset, I really wanted to sit down and kind of reflect on what I've learned on this trip, because I find that's the best way for me to really internalize things. If I just kind of passively experience them and not deeply engage with the ideas that I'm learning, I find that they don't really sink in. So this is my way of making sure but that happens. One of the biggest things that I experienced on this trip that I wasn't expecting is how many cultural differences we came across, and none of them were anything really extreme or difficult to manage, but it was just tiny things over and over again, like how they serve coffee, and like here you often get a latte with a little cookie on the side. That was just really nice. Things like how much you tip at a restaurant. It was different between in the UK versus even being over in the Netherlands, to things as big as what the native language is and what side of the road people drive on and where to look when you cross the street and when to cross the street and things to keep you safe. And essentially the reason why it's important to me that I learn this is because it really has given me a new level of respect for immigrants who have to move across the world to a place that's even more different than Europe and North America, pick up their whole life and know that they don't have plans to even go back to what they're used to anytime soon and get used to all of these new cultural changes. It's just really put into perspective for me how taxing that would be, seeing how it affected me on just a short trip to a place that in the grand scheme of things isn't that different from where I'm from. The thing that this trip has really put into perspective for me is that going on adventures is expensive and therefore it is a huge privilege. I often found myself getting really caught up in the stress of going over budget, which we absolutely did. Things ended up being a lot more expensive than I expected. Not only is the exchange rate of the dollar not as strong, things generally are the same amount in pounds as they are at home, so things just generally cost about like 30 to 50% more, which was especially hard because a lot of this trip we couldn't go grocery shopping, so we're eating meals out all the time and there are just so many unexpected expenses. But at the end of the day, I come from a financially comfortable background and I have savings to pull from. I'm not going to be living in debt now that I went on this big adventure. It's very important to me that I don't forget that being able to do this was a huge privilege that a lot of people don't get to do. And a related point to the financial stress is that even on top of finances, traveling is stressful. Like there are always going to be little hiccups that get in the way and wrenches thrown in your plans. And often that leads to financial stress because you suddenly have to pay for a flight because you missed a flight that you were supposed to catch. And I noticed that I have this recurring theme in my life where I'll feel a negative emotion and then I'll get this stacked feeling on top of feeling guilty for feeling bad, because I know that I should be feeling grateful and for the privileges that I have and to have this opportunity. And then so I start feeling bad for feeling bad. I should just be able to smile through the stressful moments and just be having a good time the whole time. But that's not realistic and I wouldn't expect that of anybody else and I shouldn't expect it of myself. And this has just been another learning experience in learning how to be kinder to myself and just let myself feel all of my feelings, good and bad, without judging them. And one of the takeaways that I got from this trip that I will cherish the most is some of the messages and inspirations that I was able to get from being able to be up close, experiencing the history and the worlds of artists that have impacted us very deeply. We got to go on the tour in Liverpool to learn about the Beatles, and the tour guide at the end of the trip kind of made the point that the Beatles were just singing about literally their average everyday lives, like waking up and combing your hair and walking to the bus. And we got to walk from Paul McCartney's house to his bus stop and kind of live those moments, which was very cool. But they were just singing about everyday relatable things. It wasn't anything crazy or extravagant, even though they became like the most famous musicians in the world. They just wrote about normal, relatable, everyday things. And there was a similar theme when I went to the Van Gogh Museum. I read every single blurb in every single area of the museum. I wanted to soak up everything that was there. There was one that said something along the lines of, actually, I wrote it down. I'm gonna just read it. Even though his subjects are simple, they convey just how deeply Van Gogh felt the essence of life, beauty, and tragedy. Which to me is a very similar idea, that his paintings were so beautiful because he was just observing the same thing that everybody else observes, but he got so good at expressing what he felt and how he viewed the world in how he painted, and it's just so visceral and easy to pick up on that when you look at his work. And I think that's why his paintings are so widely loved and why the Beatles are so widely loved. And it reminds me that that's what I want my art to do, whether it's videography or illustration or drawing or whatever music, whatever form of art I'm engaging in. It's about authentically expressing my version of human experience in a way that it will resonate with other people. And that's the point of it. That was just really like refreshing and motivating to be reminded of that.
That's